Oh, yeah. DJ Nation fam, you know exactly what time it is. Wait, what is going on? If you're not watching live, I don't know what you're doing because we've made it. It's week 13. And week 13 means that we get to break down the Thanksgiving slate, the three gamer. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And what would be a three-game breakdown if we didn't bring in the tripod of the DJ Nation? You know what it is. We are back. The trifecta. We got Matty D to dust off the mic. He's got the cobwebs off. He's growing in a beard. I remember when he was just sweet boy Matty. When he would come in, he had no facial hair on. I didn't even think he could grow facial hair. And then he becomes Matty Ice. He becomes Matty 2v2. And he comes out of the woodwork to break down the three-game slate. And we're happy to have a Matty D at Matty DFS is where you can find him on Twitter and X. I'm not even going to introduce Kevin and myself because you've been listening to us all season. Matty, wax poetic to the people and talk to them, man. How you doing? How you feeling? And what made you come on to break this three-gamer with us?
Is this thing on? This thing on? Does this thing still work?
It still works.
It's been a while, boys. It's been a while.
Man, talk to the people, Matty. How you been doing? What's been going on? And how excited are you for this three-game breakdown tonight?
Oh, man, I've been good. I've just been busy as heck in behind the scenes, but still been playing DFS every single week. Just have had a lot of travel and stuff going on. Can't commit to doing this every week, but it's good to get back for the Thanksgiving giving slate. So this is, I know it's us three's favorite slate of the year, and man, did they load us up with some good games this week.
Absolutely. I mean, we're fully loaded up, and Matty, we're happy that you joined us. Real talk, because Kevin and I could have, we could have done it. We would have had the one-on-one, the mano-a-mano, and done the breakdown. Probably still made it to 2-hour breakdown, me and him, because that's just how much that we love the Thanksgiving slate. But it just wouldn't be tradition, and that's what Thanksgiving's all about. It just wouldn't be the same if Matty D didn't come on and join it with us. So happy to break this down with you, Matty. Really, really excited to hear your thoughts on the slate, because as you alluded to, we have probably one of the most beautiful three-game Thanksgiving slates that I can remember. I know that the Thanksgiving slate hasn't been three-game, it's been three gamers for quite some time, but we're always left with kind of these duds. We're always left kind of just like, man, there's just that one game that even as grateful we are, as Kev's alluded to pretty much every week, people stop bitching about football, stop bitching about the bad games on Thursday night, stop bitching about the island games, because when we get to the doldrums of what is pretty much February to August, February to September, people are going to be complaining about there not being football on their TV. And that usually is what happens on Thanksgiving. It's like, oh man, if we just would have just, this one game that we didn't have to worry about, it just would make it so much better. I don't feel like we have it this week. It's like, how the fuck do we break down? Go ahead, Matty, tell them.
It's because the Bears aren't on the slate for the first time in like 8 years. That's why.
That is fair. That is fair. We don't have to worry about the Chase Daniels of the world, or which receiver is it going to be from last year of Keenan and Rome and DJ Moore. How fun was that with Caleb Williams? I know we've had some other receivers and tight ends to be able to talk about that just would wreck slate. So we don't have to worry about that until Friday. And we won't break that one down necessarily. But if you're playing that Black Friday game, there is some interest there, and of course, the NFL loves to give you some goodness to be able to have fun in the DFS streets during the holiday season. We got Thursday football, Friday football, and Sunday football, and Monday football as well. So, 4 days out of 5 to be able to enjoy. What is more better than that? But we're here to break down the three-game Thanksgiving slates, the DJ Nation podcast, powered by the Fantasy Authority. You can follow the Fantasy Authority on Twitter and X at FF_authority. Myself, Ryan Williams, you can find me on Twitter and X at RyanAlexander_W. Joined as always by the usual suspect, the Godfather himself, Mr. Kevin Steele at Fantasy Rat 13. Kev, talk to the people, man. We already got the chat going live. People are excited that we're here breaking this down on a Tuesday night, a couple days before the Thursday main slate, or the Thursday Thanksgiving slate kicks off. How you feeling about the slate? And talk to the people, Kev, about how you been.
I mean, 6 to midnight to how good this fucking slate is. I mean, this on Thursday. I mean, it is phenomenal. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better slate. Every game is above a 48.5 point total or above. I mean, it's 3 just excellent games. And then they come back and they just give us even better news with Joe Burrow coming back for this game against the Ravens. All of these games have like significant meaning for the playoffs and everything else. So like this is a great slate, and I will say too, like hats off to DraftKings because they did not make this slate easy. Like a lot of times when we have these like Thanksgiving slates where they make pricing really soft, so when you get casual people jump in and to play more, like it is not that way. Like you have to make decisions on this. You cannot just simply play whoever you want because on a lot of these slates like this, that's typically what we see where you're able to just kind of throw in anybody you want. You have to make maybe one tough decision. Like that is not the case. Like, I remember years of throwing in like Adrian Peterson years ago,
Yep.
and stuff like that. But like this year, like it is awesome. I think that there are definitely ways that we're going to have you're going to make. I think one of the couple of the biggest decisions you're going to have to make are going to be like, are you going to play Jamar Chase or Jahmyr Gibbs? Because I don't know if you're going to be able to fit them both in with the way that these offenses. Because I've tried, like I've made lineups, like just like junk lineups, like trying to mess around with stuff. Like even like Jordan Love, like throwing Jordan Love in there, like it is still really tough to get in all the guys you want to get in because there's so many studs on the slate. Normally, it's like you have one or two guys that are like you want to pay up for, and then you can just fit in a bunch of other dudes. Like it's really not that way on this slate. Like there's definitely some value here, but it's not like your typical slate. So I do appreciate the DraftKings made it a little bit harder, and you're going to have to take a stand.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I think to kick it off first, how we usually do it, DJ Nation fam, is we always usually break it down by position, which we still will do. But because of the way that the slate presents itself, and Maddie, I'm curious to hear your thoughts too, because that's exactly how I felt. Right, you open this up, you're super excited, right? Kev's talking 6 to midnight, of course, because we're looking at the slate and we're like, man, this is amazing how many games that we have to choose from, right? But when you have 6 teams that all could really, like, you could really justify all 6 teams building your teams around this week. And so when it comes to that point, it's like, damn, how many different directions are we going to go with the slate? And with the team totals, right, Kev, you're the team total guy, game total guy. Like all of these games offer some fantasy goodness on paper. So you're really going to have to make some tough decisions. As Kev alluded to, the pricing is a little bit more tricky. I think DraftKings was listening to DJ Nation pod last week when we were, chuckling it up together, talking about how soft the pricing was going to be and how fun it was going to be. And then Kev hits me on Sunday, hits you too, Maddie, on Sunday, and it's like, holy shit, you're not going to be able to do whatever you want to do. And of course, it's a week after Jahmyr Gibbs goes for 50, right? Breaks the slate. We have a week now where Jamar Chase, right, is going to be shaping up for ownership. There's no T. Higgins. He's in concussion protocol. Joe Burrow is expected to be back, right? So like these are like not just the spots that we've been used to. It's not, it's not Jahmyr Gibbs after he puts up 50. It's not, Jamar Chase with just Joe Flacco. Like these are some strong spots that we're going to have to consider. I do think there's value that we could talk about that makes it a little bit easier, but the running back position too is going to be a fun one to break down because there's not really many options to go, as we expect Josh Jacobs to be back a week after Emmanuel Wilson, got the lead back duties and was able to get there. Shout out to Daniel Pope 127 who comes in, wants to hear our construction takes. We'll definitely break that down. I did want to toss it to Maddie because Maddie, you're usually from the standpoint, you can talk to the people if it's different for you for Thanksgiving, but you're from the standpoint of, hey, I'm building one lineup. People got to come and beat this one lineup. That's what it is. Even if you're playing in, I know you usually play in single entry, but I would gather that if you were throwing lineups in for Thanksgiving, you're just going to have that one lineup and just pick the contest that you want that one lineup to be in and have that be the case. Is that the same way that you're feeling this week, Maddie? And talk to the people about construction for you as it stands right now, as we look at the slate and where it's kind of taking you.
Yeah, I'm still a one lineup guy. That's just how, my style, if I'm on the go or whatever, it's hard for me to get to a computer, be at a computer at all times to do the 150 swap. So I've always been hand build and hand edit and hand submit. So that's just, part of the reason why I like to do one lineup. It's just a lot easier to keep up with, but I also just enjoy the puzzle of what do I think is the best lineup for the week. So, I think on these, in terms of like roster construction, a lot of times on these like really short slates, like the 2 gamers and 3 gamers, people want to try to get, make sure they get like one piece from the Lions and one piece from the Bengals and one piece from the Ravens and one piece from the Chiefs to make sure they kind of, try to cover all their bases. And I'd say, don't be afraid to, even in like a 3-max build and not just 150, like don't be afraid to like overstack a game or a team, like Mahomes with 3 pass catchers or Dak with both CD and Pickens, right? Like, because you're going to see a lot of just Lamb or a lot of just Pickens, but you're not going to see a lot of Dak, Pickens, Lamb, and even Ferg, or, stacks like that. So
Right.
it's about, still getting, all 3 of these games are going to be really high totals. And so, you can make a case for pretty much any stack, like Lamar and Henry and Andrews. You can play that, and if somebody's playing Lamar, they might think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't play Henry, which isn't necessarily the case because of the correlation, positive correlation they've had, together over the last 2 years. They when Henry smashes, Lamar tends to smash too. So, it's usually when the Ravens score 40 points, it's both those guys are getting there. And this is absolutely a slate where that could happen. So, I think it's about picking the game environments that you like the best. And, don't be afraid to kind of go, quote unquote, all in on, 1 or 2 teams or game environments in total, like a Mahomes, Worthy, Rice, Kelsey, and then run it back with either Lamb or Pickens or both. And if that game ends up being, 38-35, which it very well could, then you've got the nuts and, maybe Green Bay, Detroit was like 24-17. And then you've got, a one-sided affair possibly with the Ravens. Who knows what Joe Burrow looks like, without T Higgins and on the road and all that. So all that to say, don't be afraid to overload a team or a stack or a game stack.
No, that's a great point, Maddie. And I think, it's good to point out, especially when you're in this single entry, depending on what you're in, single entry from the $5 to $12, $50, $100, even when you get into like the face mask, the game changer, real high stakes, right? Like Maddie, if you're playing, in the single entries, you could only be going against, a couple hundred people, whereas like if you're and then you don't have to worry about, fucking Isaac Tesla, as I kind of was joking with you guys before, like who's gonna be the cuck, who's gonna be the guy who just fucks us, royally.
And that's really the biggest difference between like a 3-max or a single entry and a 150 is in your 150 builds, you do kind of need to get off the board a little bit just because the rest of the field is going to have, some sort of exposure to the random guy, that's going to score. So like if you're playing, like you said, a Tesla, so if you're playing golf, you may want to mix him in, with Jamo and Amon-Ra. And maybe not play Gibbs and like things like that. So just getting creative and different with your builds and getting exposure to some of the guys that, the rest of the field's not playing on a 3-game slate. And, maybe Tesla catches a 50-yard touchdown, because Khalif Raymond's hurt, I think, this week. So,
yeah,
there's potential for additional run there. So, but yeah, it's, I think it all depends on, I think it's more dependent on I'm glad you brought this up. It's more dependent on the size of the contest in terms of number of entrants, as opposed to 3 versus 20 versus 50 as to how I build my teams. Like if I've got to beat, 500,000 people, like Kev was talking about for the Million Maker, you just kind of have to get a little crazy with those builds to be unique and have something that hits to try to take that down. Whereas if you're in a tournament, what I normally play is somewhere between 100 to 300 people, you can kind of be a little more optimal with your build. And I kind of know where the field's going to go from a lot of times it's more towards the optimal. And so I can make some pivots off that, make some hedges. So I think it's more dependent on what the contest size is as opposed to, how many lineups you're going to run out. Cause I think you should still play the guys and build teams around. Like if I was going to play 150, I would still, hone in on like 1 or 2 stacks that I really like. And then just try to like build a lot of different variations of those stacks with people like different pieces around them. Like try to fit Jamar Chase in around the Kansas City and Dallas game stack. Okay, well let me try to fit Amon-Ra around that. Let me try to fit Gibbs around that. Because you're going to have to pay up for a lot of the Chiefs and Cowboys, so you're not going to have a chance to pay up at a ton of spots elsewhere. So mixing in different roster constructions that way. That's how I personally would approach the 150. But yeah, so that's my take on roster construction.
Yeah, Kevin, even as I toss it to you and shout out, see the chat's going strong. So shout out to everybody who's in there. Cody, I seen you pop up. Daniel Pope, thanks for the great question. At Root Ducks is in there. The JL27, fun chat that's going on there. We hope you guys are throwing in questions because we want to be able to get to those. And that's what it's all about as we're talking about this 3-game slate. There's a lot of ways to go. Maddie, you brought up an interesting point there. And even going to, the roster construction point, like Maddie, you talked about it, like time, right? Time is so important on this slate. If you're playing any lineups on Thanksgiving, you better make sure that you have the time. If you're making multiple lineups, that you can adjust, because we have a unique way that the Thanksgiving slate presents itself, where it's kind of like three island games, right? There's the 12 o'clock game, there's a 3:30, there's 7:20. If you are building the 150, you absolutely, it's imperative that at 3 o'clock you say, fuck all my obligations. I don't care what the family's doing, whoever's singing karaoke right now, or whoever's on the couch, or, all the story time with family. No. It's time to adjust the lineups. It's time to see, what's the inactive report for KC Dallas? What do I need to do in order to adjust? What in my lineups is dead right now? Because if you're running the 150 set, you're going to have dead lineups. Do not focus on those lineups because they're dead. And that's just the way I would approach it. The way I would approach it is, which lineups do I have set up to win now? Which those are the ones that I need to focus on. The ones that are dead, I can adjust those last because they're feeling already dead. So maybe I can salvage them to cash. But the ones that actually have a shot to win, I need to be highly focused on those. How can I build out, strategically where I can set myself up to be successful in these last 2 games? Even in the 20 max, I feel like you have to do that. In single entry, you of course want to do that too, right, Maddie? But you're only worried about that one lineup. You probably have memorized the lineup, exactly where it is to go. But in 150, even if you're hand building, some people are crazy. Maybe you're hand building 150, but even if you have a particular set of lineups, right? Let's say you built 75 lineups and you duped them twice, right? Every lineup is duped twice, so you get to 150. So maybe you have Goff stacks and you have, Jordan Love stacks or whatever on your teams. Figure out where those are set up. But maybe you faded those games and you want to really hit on, the games that, Christian Watson went for 2 touchdowns. All right, how many of those lineups do I have, with these late stacks to be able to build around? That's where it becomes important. So yeah, make sure you have whatever it is, an alarm set or something to where you can carve out that time to be able to adjust. Kev, I know you're a multi-entry player. And before we get into these breakdowns for the positions, kind of talk about the way that you might be approaching the slate from that construction build standpoint.
Yeah, I have really kind of went back to more after playing for so many years, and then being on here with Maddie and everything else. I've went to way more I play way more single entry, 3-entry max type stuff. You just don't have to get as much stuff right. You're not worried about, because if I don't have time to obviously hand build 150 lineups. And, you have optimizers and sims and everything else products that are all out there now. And I would just rather hand build. So I play way more. At most, I'll jump into is a 20-entry max, something like that, where I think it's still a little bit more manageable. Because 150, you're really running into a lot of stuff. And I just think single entry, a 3-entry max, I think is the way to go. Again, you're not worried about as much of the just crazy off the wall plays, because inevitably there's going to be in that first game, let's say where there's going to be something off the wall that happens, right? Like you said, Isaac Tesla catches a 60-yard touchdown, and you're like, oh well, I'm fucked. All right, he's on a 3-game slate, things are a lot more tight in terms of what you're going to need versus on a full 11, 12, 13 game slate on a main slate. It's a little bit different. You're not really hyper focused on that one play, but on this you definitely are. But so I'll definitely be playing, I'll be doing single entry, 3-entry max, and I'll probably do the 20-entry max on one of them, just so I can get some different sets in. For me, I will build sets of, like you guys were saying, Goff stacks or Mahomes stacks or whatever I'm going to do, and try to create some different types of stacks within it. Because I think a lot of these teams that like the Packers, for example, wanted to go Jordan Love, there's a lot of different combinations of ways that you can try to hit, because there's so many different pass catchers and they spread the ball around so much. And that's how a lot of these teams are. Not the Lions, but the Packers are that way. The Chiefs are that way. There are some teams that are way more consolidated, like the Cowboys. You pretty much know where everything's going to go for that team. You know the same thing when it really now with the Lions with with Laporta out, it really has become pretty consolidated as well for that offense. So I think it's easier to try to attack those types of teams because you have to get less things right. And I completely agree with what Maddie brought up, especially on a slate like this, like really trying to go all in on one game. And I think it's even more important on this slate of doing it that way because it is so much harder with the way that pricing is on the slate. But I think it's so much harder to try to go through and try to pick out different little things in different games because of pricing. And so I think if you could just identify one game to really go all in on, and if that game goes nuclear, which all three of these games have that potential, right? Like the cheapest one is 48.5, and then the Chiefs game is the highest at 52.5 points in terms of the point totals on the slate. And so, like, if that Chiefs game goes absolutely nuclear, you can fit in some other pieces that are probably going to get taken along. You can play an Xavier Worthy or, I would say Juice Smith-Schuster, but Tyquan Thornton catches an 80-yard touchdown. Like, it makes it easier, and you don't have to get as many things right as everybody else does on a slate like this. So I do really recommend trying to really just build all in, just complete game stack and not just your normal, double or triple stack. I mean, you can play quadruple stacks on this slate, and I think you can get away with it.
Yeah, if we see some of these game environments take off, that really could be the case. I mean, all three of these game environments really have a shot at upside, and it's going to be fun to break it down, guys. It's the DJ Nation podcast powered by the Fantasy Authority. We're here with Matty D coming in, special guest. He got some time away, from his busy life to be able to break it down with you, and we need to get into the plays to be able to break it down. So shout out to everybody who's rocking with us live. Shout out to everybody who's listening back on the pod on your airwaves because we're 20 minutes in. It's already been a fun one, and Daniel Postman firing off the questions about the plays and the way that he thinks the slate is shaping up. So I definitely want to get into the plays, and you know how we do it here at the DJ Nation podcast. We like to break it down position by position, and what better way to kind of get things started, Maddie, is at the quarterback position. And this is where basically the slate's won, right? The slate is going to be won by the quarterback and getting that quarterback right. You feel like maybe there's maybe there's a little bit of what do I want to call it? Like maybe you can make a wrong decision, quote unquote. Maybe you don't have to have the highest score because there's so many explosive options, right? Or there's 6, but like of these 6 options, you can see paths for like 3 of these guys, right, to be within the same range of each other. So maybe you feel like you can get it, but then it's like, who do you pair them with, right? So like, for example, for me, I think Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, Kansas City visiting Dallas, the way that this Dallas defense has played, the way that they've been allowing, quarterbacks and, wide receiver ones, and we'll talk about that, when we get to wide receiver, but like they've just been allowing points in bunches. We know that games in Dallas can tend to, hit their over more often than not. We know that if Dak gets pushed at home, this could really be in for a firework matchup. Now, the thing about Patrick Mahomes, if he comes in as the most popular quarterback, Kansas City can do so many fucking things with their pass catchers where it makes it inevitably hard to stack him outside of Rashee Rice, right? Who I expect to be extremely, popular on builds that start with Patrick Mahomes. It's just, the wide receiver ones that popped off against them is absolutely insane when you just go through game logs and look at it. The Romeo Dobbs 3 touchdown game. They just had AJ Brown, brought him back to life after he's having his prima donna moments on the sidelines. Earlier on, I believe the Giants receiver popped off for them for big games. It's just on and on and on. The list is insane. But then it could also be like a guy like Worthy. It could also be Kelsey. It could also, they do dumb stuff with Hollywood Brown and some of these other guys. So like Patrick Mahomes could really get there, but who's coming along with them is the question. I do have interest there just because it is a game in Dallas, does make it fun, but we have to throw that caveat out that he's going to be more popular. So then we get to the first game. Jared Goff is at home. We tend to go there. It's starting to get concerning though, Maddie, right? Because we don't have Laporta. Like I think, and Gibbs is going to be in a good spot, right? So like do you play Goff with Gibbs, knowing how explosive he is, but then it's like Gibbs could do all the work as we saw last week. He's taken a 68-yard touchdown, 40-yard touchdown. Could definitely leave Goff behind against this Green Bay defense. It is it's the second time these two teams are facing each other. Goff has tended to play this team better at home. I believe he's got 4 straight games with multiple touchdowns against this defense. In Detroit, right? So we do like that. We know that this Detroit Lions offense can pop up at any time. They were just, in a nail-biter game, against the Giants, scarily game. And this game means a lot, right? It means a lot. They were just embarrassed by the Packers the last time they faced each other in week 1. I expect them to want to get it back, but the offense has just not looked like himself with Dan Campbell calling the plays. It makes it tough to go Goff. So then I start thinking about Jordan Love's side, right? Jordan Love is getting Jacobs back. He's potentially getting Jaden Reed back. He's kind of like Patrick Mahomes, where he could go a lot of different options. It makes me feel uncomfortable because his big games this year, Maddie, have been with Tucker Kraft. We haven't had Tucker Kraft on a slate for a while, but with getting Jaden Reed back, even with this the Detroit Lions defense has been banged up, but they, potentially could be healthy based on their injury report or getting more pieces back. But still, that when any team's allowing, the likes of Jameis Winston, other teams who have come in and faced this team, they've been putting up points. And even with Jordan Love struggles, he's had some success against this team in the past. 2 years ago on Thanksgiving, when nobody wanted to play Jordan Love, he goes out, throws for, I believe, 268 and 3. Really was able to shock the Detroit Lions there at home. So he's a gamer. He's 5,500. He's cheap. You can maybe stack him with one option. Jordan Love's probably my second favorite. And then I think in that third game, I'd probably have to go with Lamar. Lamar's 6,800. We have not seen the Lamar Jackson game yet. Derrick Henry is going to be popular. How many times have we talked about, Maddie, that if you play if you play Lamar and you play Derrick Henry, you get all the points from the Ravens, and you could be happy about that. I think more people would be apt to play Joe Burrow because he's coming back from injury. It's easy to stack him, right? You don't have T. Higgins. You can just go Jamar Chase. You could just go maybe Gesicki for cheap, and you can do it that way. But I have injury concerns, or I have concerns about Joe Burrow coming back from injury, even going against the Ravens, who's been letting up points from quarterbacks thus far this year, but the defense is getting healthier. They've looked a little bit better. Lamar he could break the slate, right, with his outcome. We haven't seen him, get back to rushing, but maybe this is a time. Like, playoffs are on the line. They're playing Cincinnati. They're going to be getting into the more divisional matchups as the season starts to close. So I think he's interesting. So that's where I lean. I think I in the first game, I do like Love stacks because he's cheap and you could do weird things with him early optimal. I think Lamar is probably going to be one of my favorite quarterbacks because even though he's the highest owned play on the slate, he offers good leverage with Derrick Henry. And then, of course, Patrick Mahomes is going to be interested in me. Talk to the people about where you're going at quarterback on the slate.
Yeah, I really love that middle game, Kansas City, Dallas. It's, for me, the stacks just feel obvious. Like, if I'm playing Mahomes, I'm going to play Rice and I'm going to play Worthy and I'm going to play Kelsey. And then you've got Lamb would be my single run back on the Dallas side. And then if you're playing Dak, you can just double stack it with Pickens and Lamb, get all the Dallas production, and then run it back with like a Rice or one of those Rice, Worthy, Kelsey, or even two of them. Because there's a world where both Dak and Mahomes, and just go back and forth all game. Because, I mean, those trades that Dallas made, the main one being Quinnen Williams, I mean, they've totally changed their run defense, capabilities. I mean, him being in that middle of that line, you just can't run the ball against him. So, they still have a leaky secondary and you can still throw the ball over them. And Philly showed that early last week, throwing to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith for a lot of fantasy points. And then just were non-existent in the second half. I think, playing from ahead, they just like to try to burn clock and don't like to air it out. So I think they got complacent, but Dallas was able to move the ball all game on Philly, who's had a really strong defense, this entire year. Dallas had a couple fumbles and picks in the red zone, that led to no points early in the game. So, but I mean, if you look at those game logs, I mean, pretty much every drive Dallas had, they were moving the ball down the field entirely. And so, anytime we see Kansas City get away from Arrowhead, they tend to give up a lot more points. You look in their game logs this year, I think they give up 31 to Jacksonville on the road. They lost to Denver on the road. So their defense just isn't the same when you take them out of there. So that middle game environment, I just feel like it's pretty straightforward. And it's, two run defenses that are really good, at least recently. I just think you're just going to see a lot of passing, and it's two really good quarterbacks. So I'm not going to overthink that one. And then I really do think that Lamar's going to come in a lot lower owned than he probably should on this slate, because he is the highest priced quarterback, higher than those two we just talked about. And just with his rushing, production we've seen over the last 4 weeks, I mean, the guy has like 10, 11, and 12 yards in 3 of the last 4 games rushing. So, coming back off that injury, how healthy is he? I don't know. But I mean, they haven't been the best defensive matchups for him. I mean, playing Cleveland's not ideal. The Jets defense hasn't been a pushover, even though they traded Quinn Williams and Sauce Gardner. I mean, so, I mean, this is the first really good matchup that Lamar's had since he's been back, other than the Miami game, which was the first game back, and he scored 26. So you go back and you look at Lamar against his last game against Cincinnati last year. He threw for 290 and 4, so that wasn't even really relying on his legs. Only ran for 33 yards in that game and put up 32 DK points. So there is a path where, Lamar can smash through the air. In that game, if it's Lamar and Henry and Zay and Andrews, playing, I'd probably play just one of those pass catchers and play Henry. And then play Lamar, and then you've got the obvious run back on the other side is Jamar Chase, and then if you want to get weird and not play Chase, you can play Gesicki, which we'll talk about when we get to tight end. But so it's just those two games for me, because exactly what you talked about, Ryan. Even if there's points scored in Green Bay and Detroit, who the hell's scoring them? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I guess really the only thing I would feel confident in is if you told me Green Bay has a lead early. And then I know that, Amon-Ra and Gibbs are going to be the Detroit guys that smash on the other side. But if you tell me, Detroit's got a 21-point lead early, I mean, you start to mix in Montgomery a lot more. Detroit doesn't, I mean, they'll still throw the ball a ton, but, you probably lose out on some Jamo. And then, you've got Green Bay, are they just dumping it off to Jacobs, or, is Jaden Reed active? There's just, Green Bay's got so many different guys that they can throw the ball to. And, kind of the same with Detroit, I guess not as much with Laporta inactive, but still that game for me, it just feels wonky. Detroit hasn't been as efficient this year. Green Bay's offense hasn't looked great either. And Green Bay's defense has been pretty solid this year as well. So I don't know, that game's just I hate to say it's a stay away, but that is definitely my least favorite of the three, which never makes me feel good, because that's the first one of the day, right? And it's like,
right,
if somebody scores 35 from that game, you kind of have to have it, and the rest of the day is kind of cooked. But I really love the middle game, but I'm definitely toying with some Lamar builds.
Yeah, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? Because you get those, if like, let's say, because one of my favorite plays, I think, on the slate is a guy, two of them, I guess, are in that game, and it's Christian Watson and it's Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams is coming off of a 0, right? And I'm jumping around here before I touch the Kev, because of the importance. If you start to think about, like, if you play Christian Watson or you play Jameson Williams and they get you 10 points or less, you're really just feeling like, man, what did I leave on the table here? Even with them being cheap, right? But it's like, I might not be close to optimal. Now, if they go out and they put up, 20, right, where we've seen it happen before in that early game, you're feeling good. But, like, okay, if Jameson's putting up 20, then what's Jared Goff putting up, right? If you just have Jameson, like, you might want to have Goff because of the other options, and Jordan Love the same way. Like, if Christian Watson's putting up 20, Jordan Love at 5,500 might make you feel, like, comfortable about, like, what you could do with the rest of your build. So, having these one-off plays in the early game makes it a little bit, queasy because of that situation. Then you got to think about, it's the first game on the slate. Like, how owned are these defenses? defense is going to be, right? Like if people aren't expecting, if you're not expecting points in this game, you might want to consider the defenses, but then it's always, that weird thing where if you have the defense early, what happens if they're not scoring a touchdown and what have you. So really, that's what makes it so fun, Maddie, is like all of these games could really take off for a ceiling and play, to their whatever, you want to call that percentage outcome of really hitting it off. And so you really have to make some stands. Kev, talk to the people about quarterbacks here and how are you looking at the slate through the quarterback lens for the Thanksgiving slate?
Well, I think the first two things to look at is one, that two of these three games are divisional games, and divisional games tend to just play out a little bit weird. This is the second time that the Lions and the Packers have played each other. They're very familiar with each other. They know each other's tendencies. And where the middle game, I mean, it's not, obviously, AFC versus NFC here. And this is where things can get a little bit wild. And as Matty talked about that middle game, both of these, like, I have a lot more respect with this Cowboys defense than I think than what other people might. I don't think they're like an elite defense or anything like that by any means. I think they're went from a bottom third of the league defense to maybe they're average. I think they're still struggling the passing game. But the thing is, but I do think they're better against the run. I also think that, the Chiefs have been elite against the run all year. There's been one game all year, and that was when James Cook had, that game. But that was also with Josh Allen, where you're much more focused on him. You're not as concerned with James Cook. But other than that, they just went out and shut down Jonathan Taylor, who has been on an absolute heater all year, and just made him irrelevant. Did absolutely nothing in that game. So, I'm not really as concerned with that. So I think this is much more of two defenses that are or two offenses that are going to be able to throw the ball. And you already know both of these offenses are going to chuck it. Both of these teams are top 5 pass attempts all year. And you do not have to try to do anything to Andy Reid to get him away from running the ball. Like, people have been begging him to run the ball all year, right? Because defenses will do whatever they can to say, hey, you can run the ball on us all you want. And that's what ends up happening. But so both of these teams are likely going to throw the ball at a really high rate. And so I think there's a lot to like with this middle game. I think this one has the highest potential of going nuclear. If you told me this game, the final score was 38-31, it would not shock me at all. Like, this game has the highest potential for that. The Chiefs defense also tends to struggle at times, especially against the deep ball, because just the way that if you watch any Chiefs game, you will see that they never turn their head around ever. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world. They get burned so often deep because of it. And so, when you have George Pickens, you have CeeDee Lamb, you have two elite level wide receivers here. They're definitely going to try to take away one of them. That's what Spags does. He's going to try to take away one. And, but overall, I think this game has the highest potential. The other one, though, I do agree. I think it actually is Lamar Jackson. I don't think Lamar is going to be as popular as maybe – I don't think he's going to be that popular. He has been terrible, honestly, the last 3 weeks. But if you really pull back the curtains on it and really try to get some context, he just hasn't been pushed. He hasn't thrown the ball more than 25 times, I think, in any of those games, because they're playing the Jets. They're playing the Cleveland Browns. They're playing the Minnesota Vikings. Like they were not playing any offense that pushed them. And so they were perfectly comfortable not really having Lamar do too much, not really needing him to throw the ball as much. This is not going to be that game. I think they're going to have to throw the ball. And this is even though the Bengals are kind of on the outside looking in and making the division, they're not really out of it. They still play the Ravens twice. They play the Steelers again, or not Steelers, but they have those games coming up. But so this is a pretty big game. I don't think the Bengals are going to be able to come back, but there's no shot that Joe Burrow is not going to be ready for this game on Thursday night. And so I think Lamar could also be the one that gets overlooked here with all of these other games. And I think that's the mistake. I know people talked about his rushing upside. He's still running the ball at a decent clip. He just really hasn't got there. But also, some of these defenses they're playing are pretty good against the run. But they just haven't had to throw the ball as much. And that's been my biggest takeaway for Lamar Jackson. He's still been really efficient all year. He has been really good. 4th in yards per attempt, 2nd in fantasy points per dropback, were things we always look for. And we couldn't ask for a better matchup. The Bengals are terrible at everything. The only thing they have one thing and one thing only, and that is DJ Turner on the outside, and he shuts down most X wide receivers. He just is a no-fly zone. He has been elite. Other than that, everything else is in game. What do the Ravens do the most? They use double tight ends. Well, you're going to see a lot of Isaiah Likely. You're going to see a ton of Mark Andrews. The Bengals have been historically bad against tight ends. Like, it is absolutely ridiculous. Every tight end goes off on them. And so we know we're going to be able to go with Mark Andrews, who's the safety valve for Lamar Jackson. I think Isaiah Likely is probably also in play. I've messed around with that too, playing both of them in builds because I think it's definitely in play when it comes to Lamar.
Yep.
And so I love Lamar. I think he's one of the top plays as well. When it comes to the first game, I'm less likely to get there. Like, I just think that game has a much more higher priority of being like a 24-20 like type of game. I have a lot of respect. I think the Packers defense is really solid. The Lions offensive line has really struggled at times this year. The Packers have done a good job of getting pressure. You also have, on the other side of that, the Packers really just want to run the ball. They don't want to throw the ball if they don't have to. Josh Jacobs is back. Like, that game feels like the one that, like, if it doesn't go off, like, that feels like the highest likelihood of the game that just collapses. It's not, and I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of exposure to it because it's in Detroit. We know, we see a lot of this, and I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be probably one of the highest owned running backs in the slate, or the highest owned running back from the slate. And I love Jahmyr Gibbs. Don't get me wrong. But the Packers have been phenomenal against the run this year. Like, they have, like, the first time these two teams played, they embarrassed the Lions in that game. And so there's going to be some revenge there. And Gibbs can still get there through the passing. I think in that game, he had like 14 targets. So, like, there's that scenario. But at the same time, like, I just feel like that's the game that I am not as excited to play. Where these other two, I think I'd rather focus on those two.
Yeah, I think that's what that's what makes it fun for the slate is like the quarterbacks here are just absolutely incredible. I just think and I saw somebody, I forget who it was, maybe it was Daniel Pope in the chat, talking about what would Lamar have to do to make it so that the quarterbacks in that middle game aren't really optimal. And the way that I kind of see it is like okay, so if Dak and if the four quarterbacks who go early, if they get 25 or less and I still have Lamar, I'm feeling good about it, because of the rushing upside that he offers and the way that he can, the way that the Cincinnati defense is set up. Like, if they haven't hit, 25, 30, then I feel really good. And even then, like we've seen Patrick Mahomes, he hits the 25-point range and maybe he's bringing like one guy along with him, same type of thing. Like Jared Goff could get there, only bring along one guy. So you could really still do some things with your builds that are enticing with Lamar there. Which make it that it just makes it fun because I agree with both of you, which is why I brought him up. I think that he's just going to fly under the radar, and the fact that he's in that last game too is nice, right? To do so. Let's talk about running back and Kev. I know Maddie, you haven't talked in a little bit, but Kev, I just was curious because we talked about Jahmyr Gibbs last week, and how great of a play he was. He's 8,800 now. And you have to make decisions because, like, if you want to play Chase at 8K, if you want to play, Chase is 8K, Amon-Ra 7,800, Rashee Rice is 7,500. Like, these three, and that's not even mentioning Pickens and Lamb, right? So these receivers are all going to jump off the page. They're all going to be in good spots, and you can't play two of those guys with Gibbs and Henry potentially. I mean, unless you really are punting on some of these other spots. Henry's 7,300, like, he's going to shape up well. It's a home matchup. They're favored. They're going against Cincinnati, who gets gashed. I mean, you have to make decisions at running back. It's so interesting. We don't really have any value that we could rely on. Like, can we trust these Kansas City running backs? Who knows? Pacheco's back in the mix now. Dameon Pierce was signed, I believe, off of the street, who had a couple offers, like, Emmanuel Wilson, we could cross him off. Like, David Montgomery's 4,800, but like, it depends on what game script if we're getting, maybe 10 to 12 points is enough for David Montgomery, but like what? So Kev, just real quickly, like what are your thoughts on Jahmyr Gibbs first and foremost and how you're going to be attacking your builds? Because I know you'll build multiple lineups. So where is your exposure you feel like going to come in on Gibbs as it stands early right now in the week?
I probably will be underweight to the field, and maybe that'll end up being a big mistake. Maybe I'll end up regretting it, right? Because we know that of all the running backs on the slate, like, he certainly is the one that has by far the highest ceiling. Like, if he scores 40 or 50, like, it's in the range of outcomes for him. And so the $8,800 price tag. But I feel like every team that's going to play Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a very similar build because of the path that it takes you down whenever you play $800 player, because you're going to have to make concessions, right? You're not going to be able to play multiple high-priced guys when you're playing an $8,800 running back. Like, you're probably going to want to say, okay, I'm going to play Gibbs, but then I'm going to drop down to like Kareem Hunt or something like that, which I think is a mistake. I mean, Kareem Hunt's coming off a game where he had 30 carries and looked like he was absolutely dead and had 3 days to turn around to be ready. Like, literally looked like he was going to dude's 30 years old. Like, I don't think he is not going to have a huge workload in that game. Pacheco's back. It's going to be a split backfield. Like, I don't think there's incredible value in terms of the cheaper running backs. Like, I want to play Chase Brown. Like, I think Chase Brown is a phenomenal play. I don't care that Samaje Perine is back. I think Chase Brown over the last 5 games, I think, has put up almost 600 total yards, and that is against some good run defenses out there, and he still has produced. And Joe Burrow is going to check down at a high rate. He always does. He's just like Joe Flacco in that way. He is the top 5 every year in check down rate. And so I love Chase Brown in that scenario. Derrick Henry, we've talked about it. Like, I mean, the Bengals are really bad against the run. They've been terrible against the run all year. Who doesn't want to play Derrick Henry against the Bengals, right? And so, like, if you do that, like, how are you going to get Gibbs plus everybody else, right? That you want to play. And, like, if you play Gibbs, I feel like you're almost forced to not play any of the high-priced wide receivers. Can that get there? Sure. I mean, the wide receivers have been probably the worst position all year, but I just feel like there's more of an edge, and I feel like Gibbs is probably going to be the highest owned running back on this 3-game slate. I'm not saying I'm completely fading him by any means, but, like, I would be lower to the field, I think, than what everybody else is. And I think it's more of a question, like, for you, Maddie, because you're playing a single entry lineup. Like, is he going to be something you're going to lock in, or are you going to move away from him?
Yeah, I'm actually out on Gibbs this week. As crazy as that sounds, but you have those last couple games in a row, and now he's 8.8K. It's just, I think Amon-Ra can outscore him at a 1K less. Chase is 8K. Chase can obviously outscore him with no T Higgins. Right. Even with T Higgins, he can. I mean, the entire Dallas game, what's crazy to me is, we kind of talked about Kansas City and Dallas being our favorite game, but the skill players in that game are like the lowest projected owned from what I'm seeing. Like, you've got Henry that's popular. You've got the 2 Lions guys that are popular. You've got Jamar Chase that's popular. And then it's just kind of leaving, the leftovers to be the Rashee Rice, the CeeDee Lamb, the George Pickens, which is kind of crazy because that's the game we all love the most. So, I guess that could be a good thing for us. But, those are – I feel like there's just so much ceiling to have and high floor from those guys, Lamb and Pickens and Rice and Amon-Ra and Chase and Henry. I want to play Henry at running back because you just talked about how awful running back position is. I mean, I get it just because running back is bad on this slate. But I'm almost in the boat of playing like Henry and then just punting with like a Rashard Smith or a Justice Hill. Like tag Smith along with Mahomes or tag Hill along with Lamar, and maybe one of those guys catches a 3rd down touchdown in the red zone, on like a 3rd and goal from the 8 or something like that. So I think there's ways you can get creative with the running back spot this week because of just like I wouldn't just play like a Javonte Williams or I do like Chase Brown as well. I don't know if I guess he's kind of a priority for me. But I don't think he's a slam dunk like Henry is. So all that to say, I'm prioritizing the wide receivers instead of the running backs. But if you've got a build where, you've got like Mahomes with like a Worthy and Kelsey build and maybe not playing Rice, and then you can get up to a higher price running back, I like that. Because if those cheap guys are the receivers that hit, then you have the salary for the better running backs. But, if it's the Rices and the Lambs and the Chases that end up being the receivers you need, playing one of those random, Justice Hills, Keaton Mitchells, or Brashard Smith, from the Chiefs, one of those guys, I just think that build could end up winning. So that's running backs gross. I think Henry's a lock. I wouldn't overthink the Henry thing. Any running back against Cincinnati. Unless you think he gets hurt, then you better lock button Keaton Mitchell because then Keaton Mitchell is going to be the starting running back against the Bengals for the remainder of the game. That's what
I was about to say. I mean, because Justice Hill, he popped up on the injury report. Sounds like he may not play, right? So if that were to happen, but like I think where you would like think about somebody like a Keaton Mitchell would be like if you like that's where I would probably want to go, like a heavy Bengals stack, right? Where like you have the stack where they get out a lead, they build a lead, and it forces the the Ravens to abandon the run. Now they have to throw the ball a lot. And that's where Derrick Henry comes off the field and he's not as involved. Where like Justice Hill was somebody that I was like, okay, I think you can play him in that kind of game environment because that's typically what happens. Whenever they fall behind, they play somebody like that. So like if Justice Hill gets ruled out, I do think that Keaton Mitchell would be kind of interesting at $4,500. Like I wouldn't do it on one lineup, but I feel like if I was building a set of lineups, like I would want to build a lineup where the Bengals come out, maybe get a 14, 17-point lead and force the Ravens to throw the ball a lot. Because that's really been the issue with the Ravens of recent weeks is that Lamar just hasn't had to throw the ball. He's averaged 24 pass attempts over his last 4 games.
Yeah.
And he just hasn't run hot in the touchdown department like he did to start the year because he still has an 8.2% touchdown rate this year, which is awesome. But the last 4 games, he just hasn't really thrown that many touchdowns. And the only game that he did was against the Dolphins, and that's the game where he scored 26 points. And the other games, he just didn't have to get there. And so, like, I feel like, though, like that would be the way that I would look to play something like Keaton Mitchell, who's going to be like 5%, 10% owned probably on this slate. And, like, that's the way that I would play him, like, in a game stack like that.
Yeah, I would play him. I would play those running backs like the Mitchells and Hills with Lamar. I wouldn't play him, as a one-off because then it's, I mean, I guess they could get there in a one-off if the Ravens just don't score at all and they're trailing by.
I guess that's fair.
I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah. I guess that's a more fair way to look at it. Yeah, but like, and just not play Derrick Henry.
Yeah, like, and then same with Brashard Smith. If you're going to play Brashard Smith, I would absolutely have Mahomes because Smith, if he gets there, it's because he's caught a touchdown pass. So
yeah, It's just that dude's so frustrating. And Dameon Pierce isn't going to play. He won't play. But
and Pacheco Pacheco's probably back. So
yeah, Pacheco's back. He's expected to play, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, what I think you're going to see though is I think you're going to see Fremont go back to being like the third down back, the goal line back. Like he's going to get the high value touches. So like Fremont's probably still in play, but I don't like him as much as I probably would have.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of double Ravens running back.
Yeah, it's running back I think is where you can definitely get weird, and Maddie, that's why I was interested to hear your thoughts because Kevin and I had talked about it going into last week's main slate, the week 12 main slate. Running back had been it's been so important this year from a DFS standpoint. We're seeing running back, builds, 3 running back builds in the flex, even on weeks when, of course there was like the Kyle Monungai week, right? Where like you had a lot of cheap running backs. It was just easy to fit, 5K, 6K running backs. I think there were a couple 4Ks, right? That you could get and they were all smashing. And the top end wide receivers, we really haven't had slates where they pop off. And that was kind of how it shaped up last week, except for like, okay, Gibbs goes for 50, like you need to have him. But like you could play Gibbs, you could play Amon-Ra, you could play JSN last week. Like we started to see like Rashee Rice was getting there. We started to see these wide receivers pop off. And now we have a slate that's like not devoid of like high-end wide receivers that are popping off, and everybody wants to play $8,800 Gibbs. And this is
Henry, 7,800 Henry too.
And 7,300 Henry, right? So like you can't play 3 of those dudes, but like 3 of these 4 wide receivers could easily get 30. Like, and on, a Thanksgiving slate, I'm always looking like, okay, how can I get, 20 points out of most of my guys? It's hard to build for a 3-game slate where you're feeling like, especially when we have studs, right? Where you're like, all right, I'm gonna punt one position. I'm gonna punt tight end. I'm gonna punt this wide receiver, and I'm hoping he gets me, like 15. But like, from the majority standpoint, like, yeah, I feel pretty confident that Gibbs can go out and get me 20. But like, if these three of the 4 wide receivers are getting 30 or more, then I'm not going to want to have that salary locked up with Gibbs at 8,800. Like they're in just such incredible spots. So it really makes a tough decision point there for Gibbs. And he's the first player on the slate, right? We're expecting him to be one of the more popular plays, and he's the first player on the slate. If you're sitting there on Thursday looking at the early game and Gibbs goes out and gets you 22 at 8,800 and you didn't play him and you still have Chase and Rashee and CeeDee Lamb to go, you're like, man, I feel really good about this. Like, or, and maybe you play Montgomery and he got 15, but Gibbs only got, 22 and you still have Henry left. Like it really makes interesting. So I do, it's going to be very interesting to see. I haven't even really tried to play around with builds, but I know that I do want to spend up on wide receiver this week. So it's probably going to lead me to have less Gibbs than I would originally have. And I was all in on him last week, and these are the spots, this is why we play DFS, Maddie. Like, you have to just make these decisions in your head. Like, okay, where's the field going? Like, that doesn't mean that it's a slam dunk spot. And if it's wrong, that's 80% of the field, and that's crazy. But like, in the tournaments that you play, Maddie, he might be like 75% owned. That they're just dead, right? If he doesn't get 20, those teams are dead, and he could still get 22
at 8,800 though. What score does he have to get to where like you had to have it? Like
35.
On a 3-game slate, I'd say probably upper 20s. It just really depends how the other 2 games go. Like, because I mean, if Lamb and Pickens and Rice get 25 plus, they beat him at their salary, and then same with Henry and Chase, which all those guys absolutely could do that. So it's kind of I would say irrelevant of what everybody else does. 30, yeah, I would say 35 plus. Is probably going to be on the winner regardless of what the other guys do.
Maybe 30, just because if you don't like, so what your choices are. Really punting running back outside of Henry if you don't play him. Like, you're playing Kareem Hunt, you're playing Pacheco, you're playing Javonte Williams, you're playing Keaton Mitchell, like the options that Chase Brown. And if you're not playing one of those guys, you have to punt the position because like Jahmyr Gibbs is gone, Emmanuel Wilson's Montgomery's gone for cheap in that first game. So if you're not playing Gibbs, you really have to like maybe. I hate to say punt, but like you're just gonna have to play a guy that you don't feel less confident about in that position. But yeah, at 8,800, like he better be getting me 30, 35, which is insane. I'll toss it over receiver because it's so fun to talk about. I'm excited to break this down, and I'll toss it to you, Maddie. But like, Gibbs does this shit. On the touches are ridiculous. The rushing, like, this dude does not hit 20 rushes like when he's successful. The smash games that he has, he's 15 rushes, he's 16 rushes for $150 and 200 yards. That's insane. Like, that's insanity. That's just not. How can you project that, right? Like, the way that we used to always like to play Gibbs, right, is like, okay, Montgomery's in the mix. Like, yeah, if we can project him for like 15, 17 rushes, that's great, because in games that we're expecting the lines to score 30 plus, like, let's get that pass catching work, right? Like, he's going to go out and catch 6, 7, 8 passes. But the way he's been explosive on the ground now, it's like so crazy, because like, if he's not getting there, and he's actually had some really like, I don't want to say like duds, but not successful matchups against Green Bay in the past. So like, he's been not get there.
So like, I don't want to like, because it feels like we're kind of searching for it, but like, honestly, you brought that up, but like, he's been awful against the Packers. Like, he's actually never had a big game against the Packers. Now, can he? Absolutely. Like, he's phenomenal. But like if you go back in the 5 games that he's played against them, he's had 54 carries for 220 yards and 2 scores. And like, even in the passing department, he hasn't really been phenomenal. He's had, I think the best game he had was where he scored 1 touchdown and he had like 60 yards. Like, he hasn't done anything against the Packers. Now, again, say that, like, it's like he is more than capable of going absolutely nuclear against the Packers, but he hasn't in his career against them.
But those are the dude. That's what you're like hoping for, right? You're hoping that he gets that breakaway, like he's taking that 50-yard touchdown, he's taking that 60-yard touchdown to the house, and really being explosive on those limited touches. Where like, it's possible that those might not come this week. And then, Maddie, as we talk about like wide receiver, like these dudes, the floors are insane for these top end wide receivers. Jamar Chase with fucking no T Higgins out there. Joe Burrow's back in the mix. He's not seeing 15 targets against this Ravens defense. Like, come on, that absolutely outlandish at 7K. Amon-Ra, this dude goes out and just gets 20 in his sleep. He always falls into just 20 points. And like on a 3-game slate, like, I'm looking for guys who can score 20. If I'm not playing Jahmyr Gibbs, somebody on the lines is popping off. I got to go Amon-Ra at 7,800. Rashee Rice. This dude just falls into 20 points in his sleep. They have no run game. The run game is let's pass it to Rashee Rice on fucking drags and in short routes and just get the ball in his hands, and that's our run game. And then you have Pickens and Lamb, and like Lamb's at $6,900. He's $100 cheaper than Pickens. Pickens just is the one to go off. This is a home game. There's implications in this game. Lamb's been throwing tantrum on the sideline. This could be a squeaky wheel narrative. He can go out there and get 20 like it's nobody's business, and then we still have like value wide receivers that we could go into, Maddie. So talk to the people, like you're not playing Gibbs on your one team. Where are you going, and how many of these dudes are you going to try and get it fit into your lineup to to make yourself be able to feel good about that lineup you're submitting?
Yeah, it's going to come down to what my build is, but I think you need at least 2 of these top end wide receivers. Maybe you can fit a build that's got all 3. The reason I say I don't think you necessarily need 3 of them is because I do think there's a world where like a Xavier Worthy, can go for like 5 for 110 and a score, and at 4,500 or whatever he is, he becomes optimal on a Mahomes team. So like, what then you maybe want to use your flex on having 4 wide receivers, but if you do that, you can't play double tight end with the 2 cheap tight ends we're going to talk about. But it really is going to come down to lineup construction. But I 100% agree. I am clicking Jamar Chase and Amon-Ra and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and all those wide receivers. I'm prioritizing those guys over Jahmyr Gibbs 100%. It's not even a question.
Do you know what Jamar Chase career averages is against Baltimore?
It's probably ridiculous because I feel like every year the Baltimore-Cincinnati game is the one that is like 48-45.
His career average against them is 7 catches, 125 yards, and a score.
Yeah,
his career average.
That's
and the one game, the 300-yard game was against them, wasn't it?
Well, it was 264. Yeah, 11 for 264 and 3.
And 3 touchdowns.
And the one before that was 10, 193 and 2. He has a 8 for 201 and 1 against them. A 7 for 1.
He's unbelievable.
8 for 86 and 1. Like, he is absolutely smoked the Ravens.
He's unbelievable. And I tell you what,
and he gets Joe Burrow back.
It's a bad spot to be in if you're holding in first place and you see somebody's got Jamar Chase coming up in the tournament standings behind you. That's not a good spot to be in.
No,
well, that's the thing, Maddie, is like you could literally you could feel like you have a great team, and looking at PMR and you're doing calculations and you're like, fuck, the dude behind, like you probably have Henry because the running back slate just shapes up that way. So like maybe you match with Henry, but like, okay, he's got Chase and somebody else, right? Like he's got Chase and Gesicki, he's got Chase and Zay Flowers, he's got Chase and Andrews.
Yep.
And you just like, you're not feeling good about that if you don't have that on the lineup. So he's 8K, like there's no T Higgins. Like what, it's just so hard in the world to imagine that he's not, gonna get there with output.
I mean, he's got games of 23 and 19 targets. And that's not just because it's Joe Flacco. Like that's just because the Bengals defense is awful and they don't have any other option than to throw it to Jamar Chase.
No, and it's super condensed. Like with who they do get the ball to.
Yeah. No, it's a fun one to break down. And Kevin, we even talk about like, okay, so Maddie brought up Xavier Worthy. I think Xavier Worthy is probably one of my favorite plays on the slate. He's popped up on the injury report. It's been a while since he's gotten there, right? And just the way that this offense has kind of been playing. But if we expect points to be scored, in this game and in Dallas, and we really could, see Patrick Mahomes lighting it up, like I could see Worthy getting here. When you're looking at the wide receivers who have popped off against Dallas, and I kind of alluded to it, like, okay, Garrett Wilson had, he had 6 catches for 71 to touchdown. Devonta Smith, 9 catches, 105, but no touchdowns. AJ Brown, 9 catches, 118 touchdown. Wan'Dale Robinson, 8 for 142 and 1. Romeo Doubs had the 6 catches for 58, but he had 3 touchdowns. Like wide receivers have been finding ways to get points against this, Dallas Cowboys team. And he's a good play. I feel like, people will forget about Jamison Williams. because he puts up a dud, right? And that's just in his outputs. Like he's boom or bust. He's like Will Fuller, right? Will Fuller from, however many years ago with Deshaun Watson, and he was on Thanksgiving slate, and people wanted to go DeAndre Hopkins. Oh, you can't play Will Fuller, and Will Fuller goes out there and I forget, it's 102 or something. He might even got 3, but it was a Will Fuller week. That's the exact same way I feel about Jameson Williams. He had been getting so much work leading up to him. So it maybe this is the week that he could get more involved, especially if it's not, Jahmyr Gibbs. He could be that. The Packers wide receivers, like I kind of alluded to, if I'm playing Love, I think it's hard to always play Jordan Love doubles. So I probably would go with one of these guys. I'm not going to play Jaden Reed coming off of injury, but like Romeo Doubs or Christian Watson, I think could make some sense. I don't know if you're going to go cheaper than that, Kev. You're usually the cheap whisperer. We're not at tight end yet, but are there any value running back or value wide receivers that you're looking at this week that could really stick out on lineups?
I mean, I think the ones that come to mind would be Andre Ichavas, obviously, with no T. Higgins. He probably 5 to 7 targets. I think it's probably fair for him. He's 4K or 4,300. I think he would be one place you could definitely look at. I mean, Xavier Worthy is tough because so they've been using him a lot more as more of a vertical threat now. Like they're not doing a lot of the gimmicky stuff with him, the jet sweeps, end arounds, all that kind of stuff they typically would do with him. Some of that I think is just to keep him healthy because of the separated shoulder that he suffered because Kelsey took him out in week 1. And what the problem is that Mahomes is just cannot hit anybody deep unless it's Tyquan Thornton. He should have had a touchdown. It was the last week of the week before. He had 4 or 5 steps on the wide receiver or on the DB, and he completely overthrew him. He just hasn't been able to get that connection with Mahomes. But could he? Sure, absolutely. But he's in play, but there's a lot of volatility there with him. I don't think Jaden Reed plays. I think he's out for another week. I just don't think he plays in this one. I would be surprised if he did. But I also think maybe Rashad Bateman, he can get there with Lamar. He's usually a red zone threat for him. So at 3,800, I think Rashad Bateman would be the other one that you could probably look at. And then I would have to be playing multi-entry stuff, but Tyquan Thornton could definitely still get there on a deep target. But he's not seeing volume. It's a complete, Hail Mary type play. He's not somebody that I would one side of a core build or something like that. But he certainly could get there. So if I was building multiple sets of Chiefs, he would certainly be in there because I think he has that best connection with Mahomes. But it's also he's going to get 1 or 2 targets, and they're going to be deep targets. And if he can come down with them, he might be able to hit.
Yeah. What do we have? A Justin Watson slate not too long ago. Justin Watson Thanksgiving slate where he pops off. So it's definitely bound. If I'm playing Mahomes teams, especially in 20 max or anything higher, I'm definitely building sets as you're talking about, Kev, where I'm just stacking him with Tycon. I'm stacking him with Rice and Worthy. I'm stacking them with 3 of those pass catchers. I'm putting Hollywood Brown on the team because he could get there. It's really enticing. You brought up Andre Ichavas. I see somebody talking about Michael Tinsley in the chat. I believe that's his name. He gets in the end zone last week because of Higgins going out with that concussion. Any interest in a guy like that for value savings?
I'd rather play Gesicki personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Especially he has a really strong chemistry with Joe Burrow too.
Burrow's the reason Gesicki got paid this offseason.
Yeah, late last year, he was coming on. He was somebody that was crushing last year. So, I would much prefer to play.
He had 10 targets in week 18 and 12 targets in week 17.
Yeah. Versus playing someone, then again, Tinsley will have 3 catches for 60 yards and a score, and then you'd be like,
probably, because that's how these things go. But
always how it goes.
So the other question, I know we've kind of talked about, but if you had to choose between George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, who are you going with? If you got to take a stand,
man.
The thing that worries me with Pickens is this calf injury that he's popped up with.
I'm playing Lamb personally, but a Pickens is a dog.
No, but he is. But like, are you nervous at all about the
unbelievable.
injury that he has, like with this calf injury?
Yeah, I think that happened on like the last catch he had. He got rolled up on funky, but I think it's everything I've seen says he's okay. But
it's kind of funny. Like we've seen, I really feel like we've seen a changing of the guard there. I don't know what's going on, but like Pickens,
well, it's just Lamb's dropping the ball.
That's what I was going to say.
If Lamb wasn't dropping the ball, this wouldn't even be a conversation.
Like, there's been this narrative that Lamb is like just not getting targets. Like that's not like he's getting targets. He's dropping the goddamn ball.
But that's what I'm saying. They kind of changed role. Like Pickens is out there being fucking reliable. Just like this is a basket case that we've seen like at Pittsburgh, like prima donna drama all the time. And Lamb's the calm, cool, collected one, goes out, catches everything. And now they've kind of flipped where Lamb's out there. The Lamb doing those drops. That's exactly what Pickens was doing with the Steelers. I'm like, what the hell am I watching? Like these two guys have changed roles. Like this doesn't make any sense. But yeah, Lamb being 6,900. Just coming off of all these disappointments. Now, everybody's going to be watching. I think I saw something where they're projecting this Chiefs and Cowboys game to be like the highest watched football game ever. Based on, it being Thanksgiving and the holiday, everybody tuned in. So like, I think this is a time where CD could show out. And like, if he doesn't, he doesn't, but like, that's why we play the game. I'd be willing to definitely go Lamb there, Kev, to your point.
He's also 6,900. Like, it's not like he's 8K, right? Where you got to decide between Lamb and Jamar Chase or Lamb and Amon-Ra. Like, you can probably play both of those guys. And I mean, looking at like
he was literally 1,000 cheaper just last weekend. So
yeah, and earlier this year, I mean, week 1, Lamb had 21 points, DK points without scoring a touchdown. Week 2, he had 23 without scoring a touchdown. You give him a touchdown in both of those, he's at 27 and 29. Yeah. And then in week 7, when he got back from his injury, he had 25 with 1 touchdown. So like, he's had some games where if you just give him a touchdown, I mean, even week 8, he's at 14 without it. So there's 20 points with a touchdown. The next week, week 9, 15 without it. So 21 with a touchdown, then 17 with a touchdown. So like if he finds the box, which is kind of what you're playing, this slate for, is to find the guys that scored the touchdowns. There's a pretty good chance he's scoring 25 plus. So I just 6,900. There's like, to me, there's just like no risk there with that price tag.
I agree. I think that I like the 3 highest priced receivers on teams that don't have Mahomes more than CD Lamb. But if I'm playing that game, Maddie, to your point, and that's like Lamb is a must for me. But I'd rather get to like 2 of Chase, St. Brown, and Rice. On like Lamar builds or Jordan Love builds, even or Jared Goff, if I'm playing him, I'd be apt to go there over CD. Real quickly, Maddie, and then we'll talk about tight ends. Zay Flowers at 6,100. I think he'll start to catch some steam just because of his price tag. I know Rashad Bateman's on the injury report, but he could definitely be, he could definitely be in. Zay Flowers, when he's popular, is one of the worst plays I feel like ever. He just I don't know. It's just not in his profiles to go out and do these things that people feel like that he can do. Even as much as I like Lamar, I don't know how much Zay Flowers that I'm getting to, but I just wanted to quickly bring up you guys, because I know that'll be a question, and I think he'll be popular because of his price tag. How are you guys treating Zay Flowers, if at all, this week?
Well, I'm out just because it's just an awkward spot. Salary's awkward. He's at a position where I like 8 other guys a lot more, whether it's priced up or priced down.
Yep.
I mean, sure. I never play Zay Flowers. I mean, the guy's good for 12 points every single week, and that's about it.
Yeah, he's like a safe floor play, but he doesn't necessarily tend to show a high ceiling. He has the one game in week 1 where he had 7 for 143 and 1 against the Bills. But other than that,
he just doesn't score touchdowns. Like the yardage is fine, the receptions are fine. He just never scores.
Right, like he has to break off a long touchdown. He's running a ton of routes. He has a really good target share. I mean, 28% target share on the year. Like all of those things are great, but like he's also just doesn't see any red zone targets. He has 4 all year, and like once they get down inside the red zone, it's Derrick Henry, it's Mark Andrews, it's Rashad Bateman. They completely go away from Zay Flowers. So like he's like a 20 to 20 type player, and so it makes it like he has to. He has to rip off a long touchdown for him to be able to get there, and that's just not something he typically does. And so like Like, he's just more of a safer play than I think he is overall. Like, he's a great floor play, but he doesn't offer as much ceiling on a week-to-week basis.
No, fair enough. I agree. I agree. And that's not what I'm looking for in a profile with the receivers that we talked about already for this slate. Let's talk about tight end. Tight end is fun this week because we do have. I mean, it's one. It's got to be your value spot, right? We've talked about so many studs already on the slate. You get to tight end. We don't have a McBride. We don't have a Bowers. Yeah, we have Kelsey, but like the way the slate shapes up, you're going to have to take some shots at maybe cheap tight ends to be able to get some of these studs in your builds. And so we have two studs basically to talk about that are going to be popular. It's Mark Andrews at 3,600. It's Mike Gesicki at 3,100. You guys have already been, waxing poetic about Gesicki's role. Mark Andrews, I think he's definitely carved out a role, for himself, been the one that Lamar has been leaning on, and I feel like, I felt like coming into the season, Mark Andrews would have a lot to prove based on how the playoffs went, last year and really being, the kind of the one doesn't fall on one player, but that's the last remembrance that we have of him not making that catch and really leaving Baltimore fans, disappointed. And I thought he was in, kind of for a bounce back year. It just hasn't been the case because the Ravens have struggled so much. But now that they're starting to get things going, I see Mark Andrews more involved. And at 3,600, I think he, I'm going to be, trying to be contrarian elsewhere. This is a place where I'm just going to, take the points at 3,600 and see what I can do with my builds. Obviously, I have some interest in Kelsey. If I'm going to get some Mahomes, I just am not playing Jake Ferguson on slates. Like if he goes out and gets the touchdown, then so be it. I can play him, I guess, in Dak builds if I get there, but I'm not playing him as a one-off as he becomes the most popular, or not most popular, but the most expensive tight end on the slate. Talk to me, boys. Talk to me, boys, about what we're doing at tight end. Maddie, take it. Where are you going? Because I know you'll be straightforward.
Yeah, I think it's easy. I think it's Mark Andrews. I think it's Mike Gesicki, and I think it's Isaiah Likely. Likely's the sneaky one here because he hasn't scored this year. He had 6 tutties last year. He's on the field. He's playing over 50% of the snaps every single game this year, and he gets a handful of targets. So with how bad the Bengals have been against tight ends, I would not be shocked if Likely had like a 4 for 50 and 2 touchdown game at 2,600.
And what insane leverage, he would be. I don't even know what you could do pivot wise, from your teams in the late game. But like if somebody has, that's a K, right? That's 1K if you don't play Mark Andrews, or maybe you have both of them, right? But if you don't play Mark Andrews and you go Likely, you save $1,000. Like what can you do with that $1,000 in your builds to really make it enticing to, have that swap? It gets interesting there. Kev, how are you feeling about tight end and where are you going in your builds?
I mean, I definitely think that too. If you do that, I mean, you're getting probably pretty good leverage because I bet Andrews is probably the highest owned tight end on the slate. Like everybody knows how bad the Bengals are. Like it's not a secret how bad the Bengals are against them. So, I don't mind it either. And there's a lot of times they will line up Likely as like a wide receiver and you utilize it there and have them both on the field at the same time, where they'll actually pull, Andrews down and have him in line to block and let Likely go out and run a lot of routes. But to bring home the Mike Gesicki point, one thing I want to bring up is last week in week 12, his first game back, he completely made Noah Fant useless. He ran 26 routes to just 7 for Noah Fant last week, and he also had a 17% target share last week. And then also games without T. Higgins last year. This is what Gesicki did. Week 2, 7 for 91, 9 targets. And week 8, 7 for 73, 8 targets. 5 for 102 on 6 targets, and 4 for 30 on another 9 targets. So those were games without T. Higgins last year. So Gesicki's is just a smash play. I mean, pricing wise, he allows you to get up to a lot of other things. He's 3,100. The Ravens have struggled against tight ends this year. So there's lots to like here with Gesicki. I think everything sets up for him really well. I don't mind Kelsey either. Obviously at 5K, he's actually, I think since like week 5, he's actually seen like a 22, 23% target share since that time. So he's been pretty heavily involved. Started to score a little bit of touchdowns, but he's 5K. Like Ferguson's interesting because like if you kind of look at a lot of things that shows like the Chiefs have like been really good against tight ends this year, but they've also struggled at times against tight ends. Like we saw the Dalton Kincaid game happen where Dalton Kincaid just absolutely ate them for lunch and in that game. And so I do think at times they can struggle against tight ends, but it's hard to get to them because of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, right? So like Andy's 5,100, like I would probably rather go the cheaper route and go with an Andrews or Gesicki before I got up to Jake Ferguson. Like, could Jake Ferguson get there? Absolutely. He's been, kind of that safety valve, but like he's also a player that, for the most part, outside of like those first few weeks, mainly whenever CeeDee Lamb was out, whenever with that high ankle sprain, where he started to really take off. But since that point, like he's really cooled off. Like he's basically since that time 11, 11.6, 9, 0. Like he just hasn't been as good when CeeDee Lamb has come back. And so honestly, like I'm just not as excited about him. For me, it's going to be Gesicki. It's going to be likely. I have some interest there. Andrews and Kelsey.
Yeah, it's I think it's pretty straightforward. It is interesting. Brock Wright is questionable. I think he's dealing with an injury. There's already no Laporta, so who do they, go out and throw there? Doesn't even mean that the tight end is going to be viable there. It could just mean more work for the wide receivers and the running backs for Detroit. There is one interesting name, and Kev, I'm kind of disappointed that you didn't bring him up because you're that tight end whisperer for cheap. But there's John Fitzpatrick character for Green Bay. Since Tucker Kraft has been out of the picture, he's been on the field. It hasn't really amounted to much, but he's the stone minimum at 2,500 to be able to have some value open to your lineups. Now the tough thing is, right, he's in that first game, so like you play him and he'd easily go out there, get 0, get 1, and you're dead and left holding the bag. But if I'm interested in some Jordan Love stacks. So if I'm going to be stacking up that game in some weird ways, expecting to go off, like if this dude goes out there, catches a touchdown and can get 10 points, 12 points at minimum, it could be something there at 2,500. Kev, I'll take it to you. What's going
on? Like, if I was going to play, I don't even know if he's on this slate. I have to look. I don't even look. Like, is he on here? He is. So if you're gonna give me a punt, like it's not gonna be him. All right, the guy's seen like 2 targets.
Oh God, here we go, Ryan. You just had to do this.
No. Well, like, my point is, I'm not going to play him. But like, if I was going to look for a punt, I would play Robert Tonyan because Noah Gray is going to be out. He's got a concussion, so he's not playing. He's going to be their number 2 tight end. The Chiefs incorporate the number 2 tight end. I'm saying if I had to choose a tight end that cheap, I would just go play Robert Tonyan, who probably could see 2 or 3 targets in this game. I'm not going to, but I'm saying that's how I'm really just dunking on your play of how little I would rather play that guy. There's just other options that I would rather play.
Absolutely. I don't think you can. I don't think you can even consider playing him outside of a team that doesn't have Jordan Love. But just thought that was interesting.
We're talking about all this, and who's going to score twice? It's going to be Charlie Kohler. That's what's going to happen.
It's going to be Charlie Kohler. Hell yeah! Oh God, Charlie Kohler. The Ravens do weird shit. Like we didn't even talk about Hopkins too. But the Ravens, the Green Bay. That's the thing about the slate. We have the Ravens. We got the Chiefs. We got Green Bay, who can all do weird shit with their offenses, where touchdowns are going to be coming over. Yeah, I mean he's going to be in play. Gabriel Prophet, it's like obviously it's a 3-game
play though. That's the problem. Like they're like we're just getting too cute with trying to talk about this dude. Like he should not be in play. There's way too many cheap.
If people are playing 150, he'll make he'll make some teams.
Sell me on him versus Robert Tonyan.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think that I don't even know that Robert Tonyan's has he been playing, Kev? Or are you just alluding to the fact that like this is now an injury, and so this could be the first time that he'll be out?
No, he was on he played last week. He was playing, but like Noah Gray is the number 2 tight end for them. Travis Kelce's not going to play all the snaps. Like he just doesn't anymore. Like he'll run like 60-70% of the routes, and so like Robert Tonyan's going to be on the field and he's going to be running routes. Like that's going to happen. like with Noah Gray out. Like that's been Noah Gray's job. Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm not like, hey, plant a flag, let's go play Robert Tonyan. But I'm saying he makes more sense to me in an offense where the Chiefs utilize 2 tight ends, where Travis Kelce's not going to be running all the routes, where they will target somebody like him. And Tonyan still has some juice preseason, but he looked phenomenal in the preseason with that one within the offense. He's just been buried behind Noah Gray. And so with Noah Gray not going to be playing, Tonyan would be the guy. If I was looking for a pure punt, it would be Tonyan.
Well, why not just play Brock Wright?
If Brock Wright,
starting tight end for the Lions.
If Brock Wright's out there, he could miss, and then we're talking about fucking Zylstra or whatever. But then we just get Isaac Tesla, Maddie, and then we're all good. No, I don't think. I mean, either way, they're both thin plays, Kev, like a Tonyan or Fitzpatrick. The thing about it would be if we don't have Jaden Reed back, you're not expecting Jordan Reed back. There's less options for Green Bay to throw to than there is for KC. Like we could have Juju, we could have Hollywood, we could have Tyquan Thornton, we could have the studs of Worthy and Rice. I think that there is more merit on Green Bay of just throwing a random touchdown if you're playing Love. That's why I brought him up, because Love was one of my quarterbacks. So I'm interested in 150 to maybe get a team or two that have him on there. I didn't think of Tonyan at all. So fair enough to bring him up in that same token, but I think there's more options for the Chiefs to go in that route. Let's talk about defense, fellas. And shout out to the chat, man. The chat's just been going crazy all show long. That's great. We love the DJ Nation fam for rocking with us. I mean, really, it's Maddie, right? Maddie being back. He just got everybody at the woodworks. He started throwing texts. He started getting on Twitter again and X for the first time and shooting out, notes and everything to come in here. So we appreciate everybody who's been rocking along. It's the DJ Nation podcast powered by the Fantasy Authority at FF_Authority is where you can find us on Twitter next. Guys, we got defense to talk about, and then we could build this Thanksgiving build and let the people be on their merry way. Lions are at the top, 3,200. Then you got Ravens, Chiefs, Packers, Cowboys, Bengals. This is how it shapes up. I'm probably going to it's tough to say X, right? If I won't do this in 150, but in my single entry builds and probably 3 max, I'm probably not playing the Cowboys defense, and I'm not playing the Bengals defense, who are the 2 cheaper defenses on the slate. Green Bay is interesting to me. I considered Xing them as well too, but I think they have enough juice to be able to get interesting, especially if I'm not going to get to Lions pieces and they're in that early window. So that's interesting. I really do like the Ravens defense at 3K. Like the Ravens defense has been getting healthy, even if we like Gesicki and even if we like Chase, if I'm only getting to 1 or 2 of those guys and I'm not playing Burrow, I think there's some merit to really like the Ravens. They're the last game on the slate. They're 3K. People are going to play defenses early. The early defenses, Detroit and Green Bay, people not getting to that game. Even if you're getting to that game, I could see people locking in those defenses for a short game. Chiefs are my second interest. If I'm not going to get to heavy Dallas at 2,800, I think they can, maybe they can take, get a pick 6 or make life hard on Dak and that run game. If they're not able to run the ball, they just were holding Jonathan Taylor. Like if they can make the Cowboys one-dimensional, it gives more opportunities for mistakes to be made. Kev, talk to the people. What are you doing at defense?
I mean, I don't mind the Cowboys as a play, because Mahomes has been throwing some really dumb, some really bad interceptions this year at times. And I'm going to be honest, the Chiefs offensive line I'm a little nervous about, because Trey Smith's going to be out, their right guard. Mike Caliendo was the right guard who filled up for him last week, was getting absolutely worked that entire game by the Colts offensive line. And so, that's right where Quentin Williams is going to be lining up. That man might have an absolute field day against them out there. So, it's definitely possible that, they could get some sacks. A pick 6, something like that would happen. I don't mind the Cowboys at 2,400. The Chiefs makes it tough because the Chiefs don't get turnovers, and the Chiefs don't get pressure. So the Chiefs have struggled to get pressure all year. It's Chris Jones, and that's about it. Karlaftis at times can, but Charles Minihue has been absolute buns. Nobody else gets pressure. That's been the biggest problem with that defense all year, that nobody gets pressure, nobody gets sacks. And so that's what makes me nervous about the Chiefs defense. So I think I maybe go to the Cowboys. And I don't know after that. Like maybe the Lions, I guess, if I had enough to get up there. Just because the Packers have some injuries on their offensive line. Jordan Love could tend to struggle at times. You got Aiden Hutchinson out there. So like I don't mind the Lions if I had to get up there at 32.
Maddie, what are you doing? Talk to people about defense.
I like the Ravens personally if salary is not a thing. At home, that defense has just been better. They got healthy. They got some key pieces back last couple of weeks. They've been a totally different unit the last 4 weeks than they were at the beginning of the year.
The only thing I will say, the only pushback I would say is what exactly we've talked about. They played actually 0 offenses. So like we really don't know like if they're back or not, right? Like they played some of the worst offenses, like damn a good offense they played the last 4 weeks. Like even an average offense.
Yeah, but I mean it's Burrow's first game back from injury,
and they have no offensive line, so I mean it's fair there for sure.
Yeah. And no T. Higgins, so it's literally if you take just ignore Jamar Chase, like the Bengals have nobody. I mean they're you put them in that bucket with all those other offenses you're talking about. So
yeah, I mean and Burrow will take sacks. I mean he is
because it's a what is it, a toe, or like he had toe surgery, so how mobile is he going to be, right? Like that's part of Burrow's like calling card is he's really good at avoiding sacks and extending plays and getting the ball downfield after that. So if he's not mobile,
it's fair. Okay, the Ravens are play too.
Yeah, Ravens definitely would be my number one.
Yeah,
I like the Cowboys call. I think they'll be probably 10 to 15% owned. They're at home. If Mahomes is trying to work the ball deep, they got offensive line issues. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. This is a fun one for defense. It's like I mean, defense is weird, right? You could always have the special teams touchdown. You get a weird turnover. So that's what makes it fun. But yeah, Ravens at 3K for me are definitely in play. And I do want to be lighter on that first game with defenses, even if I expect it to not be as high scoring as the other two. It's just, if we're not getting a defensive touchdown in that first game, if they're not going crazy, you could just have you could have a chance late, and that's what we're all hoping for. Got lineups coming in from the DJ Nation fam.
You got people out here putting Fitzpatrick in lineups now.
I love it. He did say Musgrave or Fitzpatrick, so shout out to.
I will say at the very least, though, I guess if Chase, St. Brown, and Lamb allows you to get to all those guys plus Henry, so like it does open up your lineup to be able to get those guys in. And so if he doesn't go out, maybe he gets 2 catches, 40 yards. Maybe it probably won't kill you.
Really, what it comes down to is Kev is not the one to bring up John Fitzpatrick, so he has to poo-poo the play. But if Kev was the one to bring up the play,
we need to have a Robert Tonyan versus Fitzpatrick bet. That's what we need. Like that. That's what we need.
Let's go. Of all the things that came out of the show, that came out of the Bills. If we're doing Fitzpatrick, and
I wasn't even getting. I wasn't even going to get to any of these guys. I was going to get to none of them. It was not going to be any of the cheap.
I don't think you need them.
Hey, you might not, Maddie. You might not.
I don't think you need them. I think you need Isaiah Likely at 2,600.
Hey, in the millie, it might get weird.
Yeah, it's gonna be real weird when Likely catches 3 touchdowns. It's gonna get real weird.
The Likely and Andrews is definitely a strong, that's a strong correlated pairing that I can definitely get behind on some Lamar builds. And speaking of builds, with builds coming in from the DJ Nation fam and us talking about builds, we definitely have to build out our Thanksgiving build tradition unlike any other. We're gonna put this in the $5 milli. I'll probably put it into another tournament as well too, just because Kevin and I have usually been putting it in for, the $20 millies on the main slate. We don't really have that this week. So maybe I'll put it into like a 5-entry max or something like that, but definitely going to build it out for the millie, as Kev alluded to. You got 500,000 entries that you're going to be playing. We're definitely going to have to, build this out now and be riding the wave, right? We want to be able to make some pivots, see how the team is going. And Maddie, of course, with you being the special guest, which is just weird, with you being a staple of the DJ Nation to even put that moniker on you. But we gotta let you start off this build and let the DJ Nation fam where we're going for the Thanksgiving slate.
Let's play. We talked about it. Probably going to be under-owned and shouldn't be. Let's play Lamar.
Kev, go ahead. What say you?
Jamar Chase.
Derrick Henry for me. Let's do it.
Likely.
Just over 5,000 for running back, wide receiver, flex, and defense.
Give me CeeDee Lamb.
Let's go Worthy for a mini stack.
This is why RB2 is so disgusting. Oh,
Yep.
I hate it. I just don't want to click the 6,500 guys. I mean, honestly, the best build is probably to play Chase Brown. And then you've got Packers or Cowboys at defense and a 5K flex, 4.8K, which is probably Jamo. Especially if you're not playing Amon-Ra and Gibbs, I feel like you almost have to play Jamo now. Or Montgomery.
Or Montgomery.
Yeah, he's 4,800. He opens up a lot.
What if you put Gesicki in the flex? Go double tight end.
Up Chase to who?
Huh?
To Jacobs?
Well, I mean, it's not well.
Because that's what we have right now.
What is it? What does he have right now? You have Chase.
So
Brown.
yeah, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, blank for now. Jamar Chase, Lamb, Worthy, likely Gesicki. Defense and running back are open.
Yeah, I don't like that bill with Gesicki. Unless you can get to Gibbs, but
yeah,
I don't think I'd rather play like Montgomery and probably Jamo or Chase Brown and Jamo. I mean, that's probably the build. Let's play Chase Brown at RB2. Jamo,
Kelsey in there too if you wanted.
You could play Kelsey in the flex, yeah.
Yeah.
Kelsey or Jamo, and it would be Kelsey and Cowboys D or Jamo and Packers, or just leave the 200 and play Cowboys either way. I personally would play Jamo just because I think if you're not
that's
playing,
what I was going to say. I feel like his,
yeah.
I feel like with his ceiling, his ability to break off like a long touchdown, like a 70-yard touchdown, to get there that way, I think is there. I know people are going to be discouraged because he didn't get targeted at all last week, and the way he was utilized last week was pretty weird. But I think he makes the most sense in like a tournament setting to get him in there at 4,800. I guess why you just drop Chase down to the flex and then split Jameson and
just how that build shakes out. Like if you're playing Worthy already, I wouldn't want Worthy and Kelsey without Mahomes, and then you have no Lions either. So I would just play. I would fit in Jamo just with how that team is constructed.
Yeah. No, I like it, and uses all the salary too. Ironically, as we usually leave money on the table, but hey, we might not have to do it this week. We got Lamar Jackson as the quarterback staple for the DJ Nation build for the Thanksgiving slate. Derrick Henry, Chase Brown as the running backs. Jameson Williams, CeeDee Lamb, Xavier Worthy at wide receiver, likely as the tight end, Chase in the flex, and then Packers D. That's what uses all the salary. And then don't forget, very important for this. I mean, it's important for every slate, but especially for the Thanksgiving build. You cannot have that flex be locked early if you have a player going late. You have to move the later players into that flex position. Give yourself some flexibility, no pun intended, to be able to adjust your lineups on the fly, because you just don't want to be able to be, to just take locks with your lineups. You want to be able to adjust if you can. So we always got to move those later players into the flex. Shout out to the JJL27 coming in. Appreciate you for finding the channel. Really happy that you did so. We're doing it, we did it on the Tuesday, right? I know there's been some content that's floating around, but not a lot. I expect most content to come out, probably tomorrow. We'll have this, back for record purposes. People want to listen on the podcast stream. We'll have that ready for the morning. But yeah, it's always fun to do these live, and it's a tradition unlike any other with the DJ Nation podcast, where you can get our live thoughts here, breaking down the Thanksgiving slate, because it is one of the most fun slates. I know Kev always likes to do stuff that we're thankful for, but let's be a little bit corny. We've been going back and forth and whatnot, but got to be thankful for Matty D. Dusting off his pipes, got the mic still plugged in. Matty DFS is where you can find him on Twitter. If you don't know, it's Matty 2v2. Matty is one of the sharpest DFS players that we play with. So he's a great one to get his thoughts, and it's great that he took some time to be here to give you the fantasy goodness as we break it down this 3-gamer DFS slate. Matty, you got any final words for the people?
No, thanks for having me back. I know I haven't been around for this season, but there's still some weeks left, so maybe things can change as we head towards the playoffs. But no, it's good to see you guys. Good to chop shop, and may your food and family be tasty and great. Well, not the family, that's weird, but may the food be tasty and your family be great this week. And the football as well. So
hell yeah.
No, yeah. Grateful for you guys and for having me on.
Love it. Kev, I see we got the JL27 coming in talking about, if we do any DK main slate breakdowns every week, which we do. And, Kev and myself, there's still a lot of weeks left, but, I've been pretty proud, Kev, that we've actually not missed a week this year. Been coming out and breaking all the main slates down for the people. And we plan to do so this week as well, probably on Black Friday night, to be able to give you guys some thoughts about the main slate, as ugly as it is for this week, heading into the weekend to build some teams out. Kev, talk to the people as we get ready to sign off for the Thanksgiving slate pod.
Yeah, I appreciate. This is my favorite show probably of the year, every single year. It's always a lot of fun to do.
Yeah.
Normally we get D-Bro on here as well, but that's when it tends to go to like a 3-hour show.
3 hours.
It's just the craziest thing ever. But he had some stuff he had to get taken care of, so he wasn't able to be on tonight. But we've been doing this now for 7-8 years, I think. At least this
Yep.
This type of podcast we have. But it's always a lot of fun, and it's always the best one. And so yeah. And I appreciate you guys. Appreciate Brian being here all year to help me out and doing the show. I feel like we've done a really good job for the most part.
Definitely.
I feel like we've talked about like a lot of our lineups we built at the end have done pretty well. Even last week, I think last week our lineup scored 170, which just wasn't enough to get there with how crazy a lot of the slate was. But lastly, though, I know, but I at least see like a 101 of Thanksgiving food you're excited to eat. Like you got to at least get that in there. I don't care. Like that's what you don't have to go through the whole menu, but just what's your 101, the thing you're looking forward to the most in terms of food?
Not dry ass turkey. I tell you that.
I'm right there with you.
You going ham?
Oh yeah, I'm a ham guy.
Okay. So what about Christmas? You do ham too?
One side of the family does ham, one side does brisket.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
See, that's that Virginia.
That's Southern cooking, baby.
Yeah, that's that Southern cooking coming through. We might have to make a trip out there for Maddie for the holiday season. That's amazing. Yeah. For myself, I think my wife's side, green bean casserole is a huge favorite. I definitely, never had that growing up, but I definitely look forward to that. When I'm with my family, of course, it's, the twice baked mac and cheese. It's just, you just can't get away from it. But, classic wise, Kev, and I'll toss it to you. Like, I just love stuffing, man. Stuffing, I know, my aunt, she's Southern, she'd kill me, but they call it dressing, down there in Mississippi. But, stuffing, dressing straight out the bird too. It's like, man, you just can't get better than that. Kev, what are you looking forward to?
I don't know if it's controversial, but like I hate stuffing. I think stuffing's gross. Like I don't. I know people love it, and then also like green bean casserole. I've never I know again another staple for Thanksgiving. I've never been a fan of it, but I know a lot of people are. And I will say this: I'm not a fan of turkey unless I don't know if you've ever had smoked turkey. Smoked turkey is actually pretty good if it's done right. Yeah. Fried turkey is also pretty good too. But just your traditional throw it in the oven turkey are always dry as hell. They're so like
you got to deep fry them in the fryer out in the driveway.
That's the way 50-50 chance of blowing the thing up and getting third-degree burns. Like that's the way to do it. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's ham for sure, and then it's sweet potato casserole.
Yes, ham with the sweet potatoes, and we put marshmallows on top of the sweet potato casserole. That combo, the ham with the ham with the sweet.
Have you guys ever ate at Ruth Chris before?
Yeah,
I have. Yeah.
So like, have you ever had? I don't know if you've ever had their sweet potato casserole. That's what my mom makes. Like it's the exact recipe. So she makes that one, but it's phenomenal. And so like those are the two things. Like if I could just get those two things, I'll just get those two things.
That's an elite combo.
Mama steal
and to eat that
with
and a little mac and cheese. Throw a little mac and cheese on there.
Mac and cheese is really good too. But
I think we broke some news on this podcast. Mama Steele started the Ruth Chris sweet potato casserole recipe.
No, she didn't. She stole it. She didn't make it.
She's wanted.
But I also feel like mac and cheese for so many people, like it's gross. Like people that I feel like I've seen so many people that try to like make mac and cheese, and it's terrible. Like, but the people that do it right, it is phenomenal. Like it is like I could eat a whole thing of that too. But like, there's a lot of people that make some really bad mac and cheese. So
some of the best comfort food that you could have, especially when you get it twice baked, creamy. Like it just, man, it's crazy. It's always tough doing this pod with you guys, because we're still 2 days away, and I'm just ready to get after it. And I'm sure the people are as well too. So it's always fun. It's the Thanksgiving pod, guys. We appreciate you. Hour 45 minutes in the books. We got to eat. We got to in the pod so Maddie comes back next year. We can't let it get to that 2 hour mark. That's his cap. That's his cap. Even if we recorded earlier, we appreciate everybody who's rocking along with us thus far. The chat was absolutely incredible this year. And we're excited. We're excited about it. If you're listening back, make sure that you guys can still get your questions in, whether it be in the Discord, link in the description on YouTube as well. You can reach out to FF_authority on Twitter and X. We'd love to have you guys rocking with us as well. Again, we will be doing a main slate breakdown for week 13. We'll get that to you guys later in the week. But until then, we got to get this money in the DFS streets for Thanksgiving, that 3-gamer that looks so mighty tasty and appetizing for us. We got to take it down, and we hope to see you guys up atop those leaderboards. For Matty D at Matty DFS is where you can find him on Twitter and X. For the Godfather himself, Mr. Kevin Steele at Fantasy Route 13. I'm Ryan Williams signing off for Twitter and X at Ryan Alexander_W. We will catch you guys next time for another DJ Nation breakdown. But until then, get this money. Peace.